It is live time and a little bit of music for those that are listening to enjoy.
These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. A quarter after midnight, and I'm watching the wall. Sometimes I feel so uptight, I just can't sleep at all. Every day doing the same old thing, we're losing time. The weekend comes, we gotta have some fun and rewind. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. I feel the rope tightening, choking off our air. We need to grab some lightning. Friday's almost here. Caught in a web, we need to cut this thread we're hanging by. Where is it said you have to be half dead to survive? These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder.
All right, then. That's time for us to get the show on the road.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for WordPress plugins A to Z, not Z.
It's interview 80, and today we sit down with Yuri Gerasymov, founder of Diffy and seasoned Drupal developer with WordPress experience. We'll explore visual regression testing for WordPress sites and his tips on juggling a full-time job, family, and thriving side business, and more. All coming up on WordPress plugins from A to Z. WordPress, the king of content management systems, powering the web with over 80,000 plugins to choose from. How do you sort the junk from the gems? Welcome to WP Plugins A to Z, where we've been keeping the pulse of WordPress alive for over 16 incredible years. Join us every week for an unrehearsed, real talk breakdowns of the latest and greatest plugins, developer and community member interviews. Some weeks, Amber and I team up to dig in. Others, I'm flying solo, unpacking WordPress news, demoing a standout plugin, or sharing tips to power up your site. No scripts, no fluff, just the good stuff from A to Z. So plug in and let's get rolling. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Coming to you direct from the Brewery Overlook here in southern Vancouver Island. I'm John Overall, and welcome to Interview 80 on WP Plugins A to Z, where we dive into the world of WordPress innovation and developer stories. Today, we're thrilled to have Yuri Gerasymov, a veteran web developer since 2008, full-time Drupal expert at Tag One Consulting, and the founder of Diffy, a powerful visual regression tester tool that's revolutionizing how developers maintain flawless designs in Drupal and WordPress sites. With over a dozen DrupalCon speaking gigs, extensive open source contributions, and the hustle of running a SAS business, Side business while raising a family of 3. Yuri brings invaluable insights on preventing visual bugs during updates, integrating testing into CI/CD pipelines, balancing a demanding career with entrepreneurial pursuits. Whether you're a WordPress maintainer battling CSS surprises or an aspiring side hustler, this episode is packed with practical tips to elevate your development game. So, welcome to the show, Yuri. Glad to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, well, I've been kind of looking forward to it, especially since you're really close to me. I think you're the closest interview I've done in a long time. You're just across one ferry hop away.
I am, yes.
You know, most of my guests, well, my guests so far have been as far away as Italy. That was an interview I did a few weeks ago. And for some reason, names vanished from my head almost as soon as I done them for some reason. One of the side effects of being ADHD. What we're going to do, though, is we're going to dive into this, and let's get a little background on you for our listeners out there to understand who you are, where you come from. Can you talk us through a little bit about your start in web development way back in 2008? What drew you to Drupal initially, and how did that evolve into working with WordPress projects? And that you're working in Drupal and WordPress now, does that ever get confusing? I tried that once, so.
It is confusing. So my story starts back in Ukraine, and at that time I started working in a Dutch company that did different web projects, mostly in Drupal, but they also had some WordPress projects as well. So that's where I started working in different platforms. But then I think that the biggest turning point for me was the trip that I did to DrupalCon in Copenhagen. And at that time, I figured out how actually conferences run, how open source models run, what people do in their free time as the contributors. And after that, I started doing more and more of that. I was a maintainer of a couple of pretty prominent Drupal modules at Drupal 7 time. So that was some time ago. And then I started doing more and more conferences and started doing presentations, etc. And at some point, I did a conference in Barcelona where I had 3 presentations in a week, and that was really too much.
That sounds like a bit of a much, yeah.
Yes, because you're constantly stressing out about what I need to do there and here, and of course it was not solo presentations. It was like with another person, sometimes with 2 people, so rehearsals, etc. So since then I lowered my involvement in conferences. And then my whole career was built on the conferences and having connections with different agencies. So I worked with different agencies.
Yeah.
And at some point I was offered a job here in Vancouver. So that's when I moved. And around that time, I had an opportunity to work on a couple of projects where visual regression testing was kind of like a vital part of the project. So it was the project was born kind of like scratch your own itch type of scenario. So we were working with a website that we were agency number 4 or 5 that were trying to maintain the site. And the tricky part was that website was about legal attorneys in United States.
Yeah.
And they are very, very particular how information about those attorneys is showing up on the site. And there were, I don't remember, 300-400 of them. And if, for example, one of their publication is not shown fully on the page, like you have some hidden overflow issue or something with CSS, that was a huge deal for them. And we were threatened to be fired, and we needed to come up with some ideas. And of course, nobody would go and check all those 300 pages manually every single time we do changes. And I remember when we took over the project and we looked at the CSS file, and it was more than 8,000 rows or 10,000 rows. It was ridiculously long.
Yeah.
Because you can imagine, like, multiple teams were trying to maintain it, and everyone was just slapping code on top of
Oh,
each
yeah.
other.
Yeah,
And that's when,
that can be challenging.
yes, and that's when the idea of actually taking screenshots with a
Yeah.
browser and comparing them came up.
Okay.
And
Well,
we were able to,
we'll be diving into the visual regression stuff here in a bit. Let's dig a little deeper into who you are now. You've contributed extensively to open source projects in the Drupal world. What do you consider one of your favorite code contributions to be, and how did that experience help you when moving into doing WordPress projects?
Hmm, that's an interesting question. So I was involved a lot in services module in Drupal. So that module allows you to do API calls to Drupal. So whenever you want to set up REST APIs, for example, or any other type of APIs, um, in later versions of Drupal, it's kind of like part of the core right now because there was adoption of Symfony components that allow you to do that. At that time, that was pretty early, and that's where this module was filling the gap. And when we were working on that module, I did a lot of contributions, and I took over the module at some point. But I would say the biggest contribution that made me proud, that was more like bringing some parts of this module, or actually working on the similar functionality but on Drupal core itself. So I was involved in authentication and some routing processes. So, and it's less about the contribution, it's the way that contribution happened, because that was at one of the conferences. And at that time, the conference was with Symfony conference as well. So idea was that we got together few people from Symfony community, few people from Drupal community, and we tried to figure out, okay, how authentication on the routes will work in Drupal 8 at the time. And it was very interesting discussion with the whiteboard and everything. And then we just went and built it in like a couple of days. And then it was some polishing process involved, but it was really nice collaboration that I'm pretty proud of. Let's put it this way.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And so, also, as a public speaker with over a dozen DrupalCon presentations, what was maybe one of the more memorable talks you had, and how did that? What lessons did you take from that that helped flow into doing WordPress work?
I think, I mean, every conference is different. And I even can talk about differences with Drupal and WordPress conferences that might be interesting to your audience as well. At the time, when I was doing conferences, I was a team leader of a group of like 10, 15 developers, and we were innovating in a lot of senses. So I think I cannot say what conference was the favorite or the best talk or anything, but I really liked when you were talking about something that is kind of like on the edge of innovation. At that time, there was like continuous integration and different testing and different techniques of like blocks management in Drupal and other things. Those were the ones probably most memorable. But I also enjoyed the talks that were more general, like what is the difference between like junior and senior developer in web development. And sometimes those talks actually sparked way more discussions afterwards and in the bar and on the parties. So those were a lot of fun. In terms of how that involved into WordPress development, I think it's more about understanding human nature and how you can connect with other developers. That's the best part of the conferences.
Okay.
Because one thing is that you are working on something in your little world and your little project, and then another thing, you're asking people around if they did something, and then you get advice that can help you hours or weeks of work. So that is very important part of being part of community, and reach out to people and build those relationships and then meet them at the conferences. And I have really a lot of great friends because of the conferences. Even
you did meet some great people there.
You meet great people, you connect with them, And like my family even make jokes with me. It's like whenever we go somewhere, it doesn't matter even like anywhere. What I try to do, I open my LinkedIn, I see if anyone lives close by to that
Yep.
area, and I reach
Mhm.
out, and usually we have coffees or dinners or lunches, and people help me to figure out what are the nice places to go. So it's been kind of like a theme of my life after I attended so many conferences, and that is amazing.
Okay, now you did previously start talking to us about the visual regression and some history on how you got into it. We're going to get you to reiterate the history, but before you do that, now visual regression is not something I knew much about when you reached out to me. It's like, okay, what is this? So I had to do some research to find out what it is. Can you, for our listeners out there of the show, let them know, tell us what visual regression is. A lot of people may be new to this, and I imagine quite a few are, especially like if I didn't know, there's going to be a ton of people that didn't know. Tell us what it is, how it's used, a bit about the testing, and why it's crucial. You were starting to give us some really good insights as to why it was crucial when you're working on that law site. But give us a little bit more details on about what it is, and then we'll start diving down into what you have to offer on it.
Of course, of course. So whenever you build a site or make changes to existing site, first thing you do after you made changes, you open the web page and see if everything is okay.
Yeah.
Right. And your website grows. You have 10 pages, 20 pages, sometimes 50 pages,
Sometimes
and
2,000.
sometimes 2000. And you very fast reach to the point that you no longer can go and check if nothing get broken
Yeah.
with your old pages. And because we use technology CSS that usually gets applied to all pages at the same time, yes, you use the best practices and try to separate them, but there is always a risk of you fixing one thing on one page and breaking something on another page. So visual regression testing is the set of tools that help you with that exact problem, checking pages that you can normally go and check yourself, but instead there is a browser that will open those pages for you, take screenshots, and ensure that if there are any changes, you are aware about them. So the couple of classical use cases for that is that you roll out WordPress updates to a site, and site is you would like to check 20, 30, 50 pages on it. So you will take screenshots of the site before you rolled out updates, then after you did that, and then you can compare them with each other. And then tool will tell you like, hey, you have 5 changes on this particular pages. You go there, you look at them. Okay, that was expected. All good, good to go. And this can help you to find issues that are visual. That's why it's visual regression testing. Another big use case is that if you have staging environment and you did some changes to the site, you can compare your staging environment with production. So again, same idea. You open 50 pages in different breakpoints, and you see where the changes are going to happen once you do the deployment to production. And this way you can catch issues on some pages that you would normally not just look at because you have limited time.
Okay. That's a very good rundown on it. It gives me a little bit more understanding of it myself and how it works. Now, you yourself have a really great product you've created. This is your little side gig. It's called Diffy. Tell us a little bit about what Diffy is and why it's a little bit better than others. And the one thing that came to my mind when you were describing all that, of course, is if you've got a website, and it's not uncommon, I have a couple of websites that are approaching 1,000 pages and such. I imagine the law site you were working on, where you said it had hundreds of lawyers, which makes for 1,000 pages approximately there in the multiple subpages. What kind of load does this put onto a website when it's going in there, opening page after page and taking screenshots of it? How does that impact it?
Of course. So Diffy is a SaaS platform. So it runs in the cloud where you can tell it, okay, here's the website, here are the pages that like URLs of the site that you would like to check. and then you can add staging environment, and the easiest way you can set it up, like go and check these pages, production versus staging. So that's the thing, like that's the minimum you need to tell to Diffy to start operating. Or you can set up monitoring, that's another thing. That will take screenshots from the same pages, for example, every week or every day, and compare them with the last run. So you could see when the changes happen. In terms, there are a lot of different, so the idea of taking screenshots from the web pages is not new. Of course, there are a lot of tools that do that.
Yeah.
But what puts us in unique position is that we try to focus on WordPress and Drupal, and we know a lot about these platforms. We know a lot about the hosting providers. The biggest probably issue with taking screenshots is the fact that pages are not static anymore. There are a lot of dynamic elements, like if you use some, for example, Elementor components, you have a lot of like different animations and sliders and different things.
Yeah.
So what makes us unique, we know how to freeze them. We have a lot of experience doing that. So the way you freeze them, you inject little JavaScript snippets, or we have actually stabilization that we run in the background ourselves. So we do that for you. So we can remove like cookie banners and newsletter banners and different pop-ups, and we freeze those sliders, and in that way you get less false positives from using Diffy comparing to other tools. In terms of the load, that's a very legit question, and I understand that you're coming from hosting background, so it's always very actual. Yes, those browsers will open your pages as any other normal users do. So they can affect your Google Analytics or whatever analytics solution you use, and they can create a load on your servers. So in those two cases, what we do, first of all, we can limit the number of workers that are hitting your websites. So you can configure, okay, this website, it's on good hosting, no problems if 20 concurrent sessions are happening. That's totally fine. But for example, staging environment, that's a different thing, because what usually agencies do, they have one server that is kind of like on cheaper side of hosting things, and they just have all the sites running on it. So if you will have, let's say, 2 sites, the 10 users bombarding it with requests, it will go down right away. So this is where we recommend, okay, for staging environments, go to 5.
I'm going to interject a question here on staging environments in particular, because of the way I do my staging environments. When I set up a stage, I lock that stage to specific IP addresses that can see it. Do you provide like the IP addresses that you're coming from so that people can whitelist them for viewing the staging environments?
Yes, we do. So what we do for that, and that's not only for this particular case. So we have an option where you can select, okay, I want all my workers to show up from a single IP address.
Right.
And that is also important for the cases, for example, if you have Cloudflare protection or any other CDN, because usually what they do, the IP address is coming from this data center, so it's actually robots that are coming in.
Right.
Let's block them.
Yeah.
And we get it all the time. So this is why we recommend people to actually allow our IP address. And then they, of course, get bypassed CDNs or the protection that, like you mentioned, for the staging environments.
Yeah.
And in this way, they can have access. And also, like private networks, that's another option. Not the option, it's another request. Sometimes people have the staging environments behind the firewalls. And this is where a single IP address helps a lot.
Yeah, very good. Okay.
There are other ways to bypass it, not by only IP address. If you like to hear that, you can also use HTTP headers. That's another option that some people do. So when they do not want to deal with the IP addresses for some policies, for example, they can use specific HTTP headers that we also can set up. So in this way, you can exclude even this traffic from your analytics.
Mhm.
Because in analytics, you can say, okay, if traffic comes with the custom header, something like user agent Diffy, as an example, then we want to ignore all the traffic. And in this way, you can exclude it as well.
Okay. Now, you've also made mention somewhere, I caught it somewhere, that your Diffy, you've compared it to using tools like Backstop.js, which is another tool that people use for doing the visual regression. So how does Diffy compare in that realm there, or how is it better?
Right. So Backstop is the open source solution based on similar technology stack that we use. And it has probably from the all solutions, Backstop is the closest in terms of how it works, because Backstop also you can have a YAML file with a list of the pages that you want to check. You create your baselines, and then you can say, okay, go and take screenshots from this URL, and then you can compare them, and you get the report. The difference, there are a lot of differences in that. First of all, you need to maintain your infrastructure yourself. So
Right.
all the workers that will be hitting the sites should be hosted locally. Then in terms of the configuration that you are having, we have a bit more in terms of like what you can do, like inject different JavaScript, CSS, remove elements, mask elements, etc. It can, like Backstop, because it's open source solution, you can go and edit the code and get to the point of having features parity. But you need to know quite a lot in Backstop to do that. Also, good thing about Diffy is that we host everything in the cloud, so it's much easier to share the results.
Mm-hmm.
That's another big thing. And then probably the biggest technological differentiator is that our comparison algorithm. So most of the tools out there, they compare the images with tool called Image Magic. It just opens the two images and go and check them pixel by pixel.
Mm-hmm.
You can set sensitivity, like the color difference that you would like to ignore. But you can imagine situation is that you had some little shift of the content in the header area. So the whole page shifts, let's say 5-10 pixels down. And then in the approach of pixel perfect comparison, you will have whole page highlighted as red because everything changed. But what we do, we developed our custom algorithm that will actually recognize the shifts, and you will have just highlighted the top section that actually changed.
Oh, that's
So
useful.
this is where there is some improvements on that side. And of course, in terms of the user experience, I feel like Diffy is a bit better because you have like thumbnails view, and then you can go in and check different pages separately. In Backstop.js, you have all the changes, all the pages on the same screen. And if you're testing, let's say 1,000, or not even 1,000, like a couple of hundred pages, that can be pretty challenging.
That's excellent. That's very helpful. So this leads into this is for agencies or people who manage multiple WordPress websites. How does Diffy's monitoring schedules, daily, weekly, or whatever, how do they help with ongoing maintenance, website updates, updating a plugin? Because plugins are known to make mistakes on things too. Or even if you've got a site that has multiple admins and somebody else goes in there and decides to change something but doesn't tell the people in charge. How does this help with things like that?
Yes. So you can use Diffy in multiple different ways. So if you're managing the site code updates and you are 100% sure that nobody else does, then you can simplify it to, okay, let's check it before we rolled out all the updates and after, and comparing them. And usually that happens like once a week, or sometimes even less frequent. But the idea is that you can manually go and run Diffy and prepare your screenshots. You can deploy the updates. You can run another set of screenshots. You can get the report. And in this way, you make sure that nothing gets broken. in case you have multiple admins and content editors and developers,
Yeah.
and maybe some other people who would like to do something with the site, then of course daily monitoring is very useful in that case, because we will take screenshots at the same time every single day, and we will show you the comparison between them. And in this way, you know that, okay, we were expecting on Monday to have some content updates, so these are 3 pages that changed, like all good. But if all of a sudden you see like, oh, we didn't deploy anything, we didn't expect our editors to do something on Sunday morning, like something is going on.
Right.
And in this way you can see, well, hopefully nothing get hacked, but maybe someone just went to be
That's
very
always a
creative and
possibility too.
there is also possibility, yes, but in this way you have a kind of like control of monitoring what is visually happening on the site. Because one thing is that you have some uptime monitoring tools that just check your website responses with 200s and that's it. But another thing, you actually visually have control how things are changing or not changing
Right.
for that regard, because there are like so many different things that can go wrong, and sometimes it's not even to do with your site. Sometimes CDN will fail, sometimes some caching can fail. Like there are a lot of cases.
Oh yeah.
And visual testing can help to check them.
Yeah, websites have a lot of layers these days. Okay, well, a final bit in this area here is, can you share with us any real world examples of how Diffy has caught a visual bug in a WordPress website that might otherwise have gone unnoticed?
I think the biggest advantage of visual testing is that when you are checking quite a lot of pages. So because like usually what is happening, developers do the, for example, updates, and they check 5-10 pages and everything looks good and they move on.
Yep, that's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it. But there are a lot of cases when you have some plugins that they don't break PHP, they don't throw any errors, but they can get some fields hidden or something that is not shown on some pages that you just missed to check.
Yep.
And that can be a big deal for the client, because they can be disappointed when something was not looked at.
Yeah, as your example in the beginning where you were talking about the law site that you were dealing with.
Exactly. So the whole idea of making sure that these top 20 or 50 pages, they are checked properly, that is already a big saver. And I'm getting asked, by the way, this question quite often when onboarding clients, is that, okay, but what pages shall we check on the site? Because like, of course you check homepage, but probably developers check homepage regardless. And what I usually recommend is one of two approaches, is that either you go and take the top pages from your analytics tool. It's like for like Google Analytics, let's check top 20, because those are the pages of the biggest impact for your end user or the owner of the site. Or you go with internal knowledge of how site is built. So you want to have landing pages, you want to have different variations of the posts, you want some listing pages, you want some pages that have unique set of plugins, for example, because you don't want to have same post, same layout, same blocks 50 times. 1 or 2 is more than enough.
Right.
So in this way, you just know which pages, if something changes, that how they will react, and in this way you cover the most functionality of the site with your setup.
Excellent. All right. Well, we're going to take a little different track here. We're going to talk a little bit about your work-life balance aside running the side business. You know, with Diffy, you are a full-time Drupal developer still, correct? And with that, what inspired you to launch Diffy as a side business while holding a full-time developer job? And you've mentioned you mentioned in your info to me that you've got 3 kids. So as a father of 3, keeping that under wraps, how do you balance all 3 of those? I know it can be pretty tough. Fortunately, my boys are reaching adulthood now and I have less to do with them. But when they were younger, it was tough with my business and my kids.
Right. So I think the best recommendation I can give is to get to the point when you don't need to be involved in daily operations, like as fast as you can. Like that's the biggest and the most important thing you can do, because that's the moment when you can say, okay, now I have not a side hobby project, but I have a business that runs. It doesn't mean it runs 100% autonomously. You still need to be involved. Like, for example, I'm involved in sales, in some calls, in support, because in terms of support, it's very important to see what people are asking about and where things got buggy, and you need to control quality a little bit better, for example. But things like development, even though I'm developer myself, I love doing development. I do it full time. I don't do development on Diffy myself nearly at all. So I have a team. I outsource this part. I still create tickets. I still can like check them whenever I have time. But the idea is that the fastest you can get to the point when you are no longer involved in the major part of operations is the better for you and for the business itself as well. Because like when you are as the owner of the business and you're so much invested in it, you still have a tendency of like, oh, I want to spend more time on this and make it better, and I know how to make it better, and my standards of quality are much higher than whatever get delivered and things like that, and that can get in a way for the business like very, very fast.
Well, yeah, I imagine it can be when you're trying to do that.
Yes. So what I'm trying to do is that I try to spend as less time as like I can. But the idea is that I'm trying to work on more strategic things, and I have a clean separation between, okay, in the early mornings I can spend like an hour or two on Diffy, and that's mainly chatting with my development team and answering all the support tickets and maybe sending a couple of emails. But during the day, I still have my full-time job. And then after my full-time job is done, I have my kids and family I need to take care of. So that's probably my recommendation in terms of time management, is that the fastest you can get to the point when you no longer need it in your business, like you need to get there, and then you can think about how to make money out of it. Because before you do development and marketing and everything on your project, it's kind of like less a business, more like another job for you. And you don't want to have multiple jobs, because otherwise you probably could just get more hours in your normal work and be happy with that.
Yeah, the idea of a business is so that you can go enjoy life. Mine's almost there. All right, so
it's not as that easy, but yes, once you get to the point, even though you understand you could get way more out of your project in terms of like money, but you need to take care of your time as well, and that's equally important.
Find a balance. All right, so what was one of the biggest challenges you found when you were turning Diffy from an idea into a SaaS product? Where did that, you got the idea obviously from when you were working on a Drupal project, and then how did you take it to the live project, the live product that you have now?
I think so. We launched it and I started talking to more agencies, and at the time when we launched, actually Backstop.js was a big thing in Drupal world. Like there were a lot of talks about it, and at the conferences. So the topic of visual regression testing was getting some traction, and that was amazing, because we could essentially sell the better version. It's paid, but it's cloud hosted. You don't need to worry about so many things, and that helped us a lot. And then when I started focusing on existing client and working with them to make tool even better and better, that's when things started to take off. And pretty soon I was able to free myself from development, and then it became a business rather than a side hobby.
Very good. Okay, well, let's start wrapping this all up here. From your experience bridging Drupal and WordPress, etc., what do you see as the key similarities and the differences in testing approaches between the two platforms? I still have a vague recollection of Drupal. I haven't looked at a Drupal site in over 12 years. And so what do you, because you're actively working in both worlds right now, what do you see as the key similarities and differences in the two platforms and the testing in the two platforms?
Well, similarities is that they're both PHP projects, right? So
Well, yeah,
knowing
that's
PHP,
that's an absolute similarity for them, and they use CSS.
yes, the idea is that you can transfer your knowledge between the tools. The technologically, there are a lot of differences, of course, but in terms of the business, I think the idea of agencies running multiple projects with a lot of clients is very, like, it's the same. It's pretty universal. There are differences the way that, for example, in WordPress, you have a lot of, like, first of all, WordPress is like so much bigger. It's just so much bigger. Like, you have these companies that maintain a couple of hundreds of websites, and there's already a team of 3-4 people, and they make great living and run their businesses successfully. And Drupal world, like 2-3 people, is mainly like a group of freelancers. It's like agencies are usually like large ones, and then you have a lot of like freelancers who are taking care of smaller number of sites. And in Drupal, it's way less. You have this more hardcore open source approach in terms of like paid plugins is not a thing. People don't just build plugins and sell them in Drupal world. It's pretty. It was probably a decision that was made a long time ago when it was founded. So you have very big difference in terms of even interaction between developers, because like people will be talking about modules and things, but they are rarely talking about side gigs and businesses. Like, the thing that I really like about WordPress ecosystem is that, I mean, you show up at the conference, you start talking with someone like completely randomly in the line for coffee, and then it's very normal questions like, oh, what do you do? Like, show me your demo, show me your plugin, show me whatever it is. And I found it very welcoming for the businesses to operate, comparing to Drupal. When you talk in Drupal world, it's more about some solutions and core and technology. But when you talk about like business and people start, oh, you're actually selling some services like to developers, we are not that much interested. Like, we're here for technology.
That's
So
interesting.
there, like, this part was very, very different to me, even though I thought like it's still technology, it's still we're building websites, but the approach that is taken is very, very different.
I hadn't thought about that. All I remember from Drupal was the biggest reason why I didn't move into that world was because of their upgrade path.
Oh, that's a big, huge debate, John.
Yeah, that's why in the beginning, when I was first starting into this and trying to figure out what platform I went on, it was Drupal, Joomla, and WordPress were my choices at the time.
Yep.
Drupal, they did an upgrade while I was in the middle of testing everything, and the upgrade path just sucked big time. And it's like, okay, I don't want to have this kind of headache every time I need to upgrade a website in its core files. Joomla had a very similar problem. I really liked their functionalities. When I discovered WordPress and their upgrade path was click here, boom, the upgrade's done. Everything still works the same. It's like, okay, sold. And that's
Yeah.
that's pretty much why I ended up in the WordPress world, the ecosystem. I never thought about the difference in the way that the Drupal community approaches the business sales or the creation of modules, as they call them, or plugins. That's interesting. I never knew about that.
Yeah. And if you go to the conference, you will notice the difference right away. Like in Drupal, all the booths are usually like either hosting providers or agencies. In WordPress, you show up and you have like hosting providers, plugins, like magazines, like so many different things. And some of the businesses are pretty small as well.
Yeah.
And actually, developers and agencies are the ones who are walking around and actually learning something new. So it's like kind of like complete opposite.
That's actually quite fascinating. Now, a couple of other quick questions here. One, with WordPress evolving the way it's evolving with the Gutenberg package, the block editor, how can visual regression help in testing, keeping the devs to adapt to the changes without breaking designs? Because the block editor is still problematic in some aspects on its design stuff, as far as I'm concerned, anyway. So, how does the visual regression testing help them keep everything accurate?
Of course. So when you develop the blocks, I think the biggest issue is when you're maintaining your custom designs. So when you build your blocks and when you have the CSS that are tied to those blocks, sometimes these blocks, they can behave differently in different contexts, different environment. So this is where if you apply visual regression testing and you cover those blocks in different contexts, then you can assure that they do not break once you update the theme, for example, or update your custom code. And it's pretty common thing. It's kind of like Lego blocks. You want to make sure that those Lego blocks are intact on their own in the design, but also how they play well with each other and how they get assembled on the pages the way that you expect them, because sometimes editor will use them in different ways. So in that case, visual regression helps a lot. And another thing that I would like to mention is that when you're building collection of the blocks, sometimes it even makes sense to apply visual regression testing even earlier before then you apply it to the fully assembled page. Because what you can do, you can have your style guides or library of all the components that you're using, and you can apply already visual regression testing on that even before you implement those blocks in your tool. So you can have multiple layers of making sure that you don't break anything in your development process.
Excellent. Now, one other thing, what is one other, rewind the tongue, what is one underrated tool or best practice in WordPress development that you wish more people knew about, perhaps inspired by your Drupal background?
That's an interesting question, because what I found in WordPress, more I learn about it and more I work with it and more I talk with agencies, is that a lot of, like, to most of the problems, people have solutions, but the thing is that those solutions are every time different. So for example, when I talk to agencies about like, oh, how do you check your WordPress updates? I have so many different tools and ideas, and people are coming up in like to very creative approaches. Even so, they come up with tools like, hey, we use this monitoring tool and this monitoring tool and that monitoring tool, and like every time the answers are very different. So it's very hard to make the best practices out of all this. what I found in Drupal, because it's so maybe more centralized, the best practices are way better defined. So you know that like you want to use functional testing, you want to use like, for example, whatever core adopts, you would like to use that comparing to adding more extra tools to your seed, because it will be better in long term, and it will be better to maintain the tool, because even the new developers, they will know for sure how to work with the core and all the technologies that are being used there. So I feel like the idea of most, not standards, but more kind of like set of tools that are being used and adopted by more developers, that could be an interesting idea.
Excellent. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up with a couple more quick questions here. If you could give one piece of advice to a budding WordPress developer facing visual bugs or work-life balance issues, what would it be?
Well, I can promote my tool, and
Yeah, well, that's what you're supposed to do.
right?
This is an opportunity to promote your tool for it, but anything else?
I think work-life balance is a hard thing. It's not the universal answer that you can give to any person.
Yeah.
But in terms of the testing, I think you need to think about the testing same way as you do development. You need to plan for it, and every time you add complexity to your site, remember that you're responsible for maintaining it long term. So make sure that you evaluate that very thoroughly, because you will be the person who will be called on Friday night to fix the site.
Oh, yeah,
So
absolutely.
you better think about, like, sometimes you better push back some features from your client, and maybe not make extra couple of $100. Then you will introduce the risk that will bite you in half a year.
Yeah.
So I think that would be advised, because I saw that so many times when people try to please clients and say yes to every single request.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
a great
it
piece of
gets very
advice. That's a really good piece of advice there. All right, so finally here, what's next for Diffy or your personal projects, or any upcoming features or talks that our listeners should watch for coming from you?
I mean, we are working on different features, of course. Now with all the development of AI, we constantly checking how it can help in like visual comparison and actually the work that we are doing. I cannot say that AI tools got to the level that they are extremely helpful in visual regression testing right now. I mean, they're great in recognizing the elements on the page and understanding if this is the header or that is a footer and this is a hero image, etc. But still, like when it's talking about highlighting the changes, still the tools that are out there right now, they are way more efficient. But I predict that in next half a year, there will be more things that are related to AI that will come into visual regression testing, because that's where people should not spend that much time even reviewing results sometimes. So I feel like in terms of where the development is going to happen, that will be definitely one of the promising ones.
Excellent. Good advice. All right. So this is the point here where you get to tell everyone where they can find you, be it just your website or how they can reach out with social media, et cetera, for you. A lot of those links you gave me, and I'll be putting them into the show notes for the show. For those listening, go check out the show notes over at wpplugins.a2z.com. And this show will be up within the next 6 hours after we're done.
Sure. So the best way to reach out to find out about the tool and reach out to me is through the website. So diffy.website is the URL. And whenever you will send an email to my mailbox, info@diffy.website, it will end up in my mailbox, and most probably I will be the one who will be replying to you. And also, once you register, you will have intercom chat that, again, gets to my phone, and we can chat about your requirements and see if there's a fit.
All right. Well, thank you, Yuri. I greatly appreciate it. Don't run away. I got to play the outro credits, and I will be back with you in just a minute or two.
Thank you very much for having me.
Reminders for the show. All the show notes can be found at wppluginsa2z.com. And while you're there, subscribe to the newsletter for more useful information delivered directly to your inbox. WP Plugins A to Z is a show that offers honest and unbiased reviews of plugins created by you, the developers, because you support the show. Help keep the show honest and unbiased by going to wppluginsa2z.com/donate and set the donation level that fits your budget. Help us make the show better for you by subscribing and reviewing the show through your favorite podcast app. You can also watch the show live on YouTube at WP Plugins A to Z. And remember to subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications of all new videos. You can also follow the show on X at WP Plugins A to Z. John can be reached directly through the website wpproatoz.com or email him at john@wppro.ca. Amber can also be contacted through the website at wpproatoz.com or email her directly, amber@wppro.ca. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.
All right, folks, that's all we got.